Our party, led by Jagmeet Singh, has made a big difference for people across our country throughout the course of this pandemic. Jagmeet's leadership in advocating for everyday people, for an extension to the CERB, for paid sick leave, and for an economic recovery that leaves no one behind, has helped families who are worried about making ends meet, has made essential workers safer, and helps support young people who are struggling.
And we know that there's a lot more to do. And I know Jagmeet and our team plan to keep fighting for all of us. We have two special guests with us today. We've got Tracy Ramsey, is a strong trade unionist with Unifor. What up, Tracy? Social justice activist and former, but soon to be, MP. Once again for Essex. We can't wait to have her back in Ottawa fighting for you and Canadians.
Will Prosper est documentariste et militant des droits civiques et humains. Il est cofondateur de Montréal-Nord République, un mouvement citoyen contre la brutalité policière et l'oppression économique. Il a fait et continue de faire un travail immense et ô combien important à Montréal-Nord et à Montréal dans son ensemble. Take it away, Tracy and Will.
Bonjour, je suis Will Prosper et c'est un honneur pour moi d'être ici parmi vous.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Ramsey. I want to say a huge thank you to all the new Democrats who are participating in this year's 2021 convention. With an election around the corner, it has been so amazing to see everyone, even if it's only virtually, and get into debating some important policies that will help make the lives of people better.
Exactement, Tracy. Cette pandémie a démontré ce que l'on savait déjà. Il y a de graves lacunes dans les services et le support qu'offre le gouvernement fédéral aux gens de ce pays. On a vu que la COVID a frappé plus durement les communautés les plus vulnérables. Dans ma communauté à Montréal-Nord, qui fut pendant des mois l'épicentre des cas de transmission au pays, je dois saluer et honorer la mémoire de Marcelin François. Cet homme qui a franchi le chemin Roxham, comme plusieurs autres, avec sa femme et ses deux enfants. Marcelin a travaillé non seulement dans une usine de textile, mais aussi comme préposé aux bénéficiaires. Ce sans-statut n'était ni employé de l'État et ni syndiqué. Donc, sans protection adéquate, il sera malheureusement le premier préposé aux bénéficiaires à mourir de la COVID, et cela à l'âge seulement de 40 ans. Je pense aujourd'hui à lui, à sa femme, ses deux enfants qu'il laisse derrière lui, et tous ceux et celles qui ne pouvaient pas travailler de la maison, ceux qui n'ont pas accès à un congé de maladie payé, les jeunes, les communautés qu'on racise, les aînés dans les centres de soins de longue durée. Nous avons le devoir et la responsabilité de faire mieux pour ceux qui prennent soin de nous. Je suis fier d'introduire le prochain invité. Tout au long de cette pandémie, il s'est battu pour les gens les plus affectés par la pandémie. Il s'est battu pour plus d'aide et pour l'obtenir le plus rapidement. Il nous a rendu visite sur le terrain à Montréal-Nord pour constater de plein fouet les impacts de la pandémie. Il nous a aidés à distribuer des simples kits sanitaires avec des masques parce que le gouvernement ne le faisait pas déjà. Et nous avons été le premier à travers Woodstock à distribuer gratuitement ces masques. Lors de cette visite, Jagmeet, j'ai pu voir à quel point il a connecté facilement avec notre population. Chaque personne était touchée par ses mots, par son empathie. Il voyait dans le leader du NPD quelqu'un qui non seulement les ressemblait, mais quelqu'un qui les comprenait. Il voyait finalement un espoir d'améliorer leurs conditions, car leurs vies sont importantes et elles comptent pour Jagmeet.
You're so right, Will. We've seen the pandemic negatively affect some people more than others. You can't tell people to stay home if they don't have the means to stay home. Essential workers can't stay home if it means not being able to pay their bills or keep food on the table for their family. I was so proud to see Jagmeet push the government to put sick leave for workers on the table, and even prouder that he continued to push the government when they only agreed to bring in half measures. I'm an auto worker in southwestern Ontario, and when the pandemic hit, people were very worried about how they would pay their bills, and they were filled with anxiety. Jagmeet didn't skip a beat, pushing for better than EI, fighting to get the CERB from 1,000 to 2,000, which has made a huge difference in the lives of working people across the country. As working people continue to be on the front lines, he has fought tirelessly to be their voice in this pandemic, calling for expanded protections for financial supports. Jagmeet is the only leader who cuts through the noise and speaks out fearlessly for all of us. We don't just want to go back to normal. We want to go forward to something better. And he is the leader who is fighting for you and I to build a better Canada.
Tout à fait, Tracy. Fini les demi-mesures. Les gens ont besoin d'aide d'ici à Montréal-Nord et à travers du pays. Ils ont besoin d'aide pour passer à travers la crise, mais aussi ils ont besoin d'aide après la crise. Ils ont besoin de plus d'opportunités et un meilleur avenir. J'ai vraiment hâte d'entendre directement ce que Jagmeet va proposer à travers son plan et comment il contribuera à aider les gens dans les mois et les années à venir.
Absolutely will. Well, I know you're all anxious to hear what he has to say, which is why I'm so thrilled to introduce you all to the leader of Canada's NDP and our friend, Jagmeet.
Bonjour, greetings, friends. I want to begin by acknowledging that I come to you from Ottawa in the traditional lands, the traditional unceded lands of the Algonquin Nation. And anytime we acknowledge the Indigenous territories that we speak on, I think it's important for us to also commit collectively to fight for justice for the first people of this land. Un grand merci à tout le monde d'être ici dans cette congrès virtuel. J'aurais préféré qu'on soit ensemble en personne, mais je sais qu'on est dans un temps difficile. Mais je veux apprécier tous nos bénévoles, les militants, tous les gens qui font partie de notre mouvement. Merci infiniment pour votre implication, pour votre travail. Grâce à vous, on a réussi à élu des députés néo-démocrates et on a eu l'opportunité de créer vraiment des avantages pour les gens. C'est grâce à nous qu'on a amélioré la condition de plusieurs personnes. Merci infiniment. I'm sad that we couldn't be in person. I know that there's so many moments, special moments that we enjoy in person, in the hallways, and I know we're missing that. And these are difficult times, but I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you. Because of you, because of everyone that's a part of our movement, all the volunteers, all the activists, because of all of you, we've elected incredible New Democrat MPs, 24 of my incredible teammates, and all of us together in Ottawa have fought to make life better for people. And it is really because of you that we have been able to achieve significant victories for people. So thank you to all of you, all the people that make up our movement. And we know there's so much more that we need to do, but thank you for being a part of this movement. Thank you for being a part of this party. Thank you so much. I know that this pandemic has been tough. It's impacted us massively. We know so many people have been hurt by this pandemic. People have lost their jobs. Small businesses have been forced to shut down, maybe never opening again. And we know that people have lost their lives. This pandemic has hit us all, but it's specifically and disproportionately impacted some people. We know that Indigenous communities that have already struggled with historic and ongoing injustice because of a lack of access to clean drinking water, access to healthcare resources, overcrowded homes, have felt the impact of this pandemic even more so. We know women who have already borne so much of the brunt of this pandemic, being stretched to the max, having to deal with childcare and care for their aging and loved ones, on top of losing job or trying to find a way to get to work without any adequate childcare. This pandemic has disproportionately impacted women. And we've seen it also in the fact that women are now at the lowest job participation rate since decades, and that is so wrong. Des pertes d'emploi, c'était frappé fort les femmes, c'était disproportionné un impact sur les femmes et je veux reconnaître ça. Mais en plus, on a vu aussi une vague de violences faites aux femmes. En 8 semaines, 8 femmes étaient tuées dans des féminicides au Québec. C'est une pandémie dans une pandémie. We know that racialized people have been hard hit by this pandemic. Many of the frontline workers, whether it's in transportation or in factories, logistics, and warehouses, there are people that are racialized, personal support workers, and they have been disproportionately impacted by this pandemic. They're the ones that are getting sick because they can't afford to stay home. They have to go to work. And we know that young people have been hard hit by this pandemic. A lot of the jobs young people worked are no longer there. The entry-level jobs, the jobs that they would start off at, are just not there, on top of having to deal with the crushing student debt that they're dealing with and the record high housing prices. This has been very tough on young people, and they've mentioned particularly impacts on their mental health. And we know that this pandemic has impacted seniors, particularly those in long-term care homes, particularly for-profit long-term care homes. These seniors, amongst the most vulnerable, have borne the brunt of this pandemic with their lives, and that is a national shame. Les coupures successives des libéraux conservateurs dans les transferts en santé ont contribué aux problèmes qui font face nos aînés dans les centres de soins de longue durée. C'est nos aînés, en particulier dans les centres de soins de longue durée à but lucratif, qui ont payé le prix avec leur vie. On a dû envoyer les forces canadiennes pour protéger nos aînés. C'est une honte nationale. Il faut rétablir la situation et vite. Il faut éliminer la recherche du profit dans les CHSLD une fois pour toutes. Personne ne devrait faire des profits sur les dos de nos aînés. New Democrats knew right when this pandemic hit that people were going to be hard hit and that they would need supports. And what we saw throughout this pandemic was that Justin Trudeau wanted to do and wanted to give the least support possible, but New Democrats fought for the maximum help for people every step of the way. Par exemple, avec la subvention salariale, Justin Trudeau a voulu seulement couvrir 10% du salaire d'un travailleur. Avec 10%, effectivement, c'est nul. C'est un geste symbolique. Mais on a lutté, on a gagné d'augmenter la subvention salariale jusqu'à 75%. Ça veut dire qu'on a couvert 75% du salaire d'un travailleur et on a sauvé des millions d'emplois. C'était nous qui l'avons fait. On sait aussi avec la PCU, Justin Trudeau a commencé $1,000. Avec $1,000, ce n'est pas suffisant pour couvrir le loyer. On a doublé la PCU pour s'assurer que les gens peuvent rejoindre les deux bouts, pour payer le loyer et les factures, pour avoir la capacité de vivre. Donc, in addition, we know that young people, instead of helping young people, the Liberal government was more interested, Justin Trudeau was more interested in helping his friends and we than actually getting help to people in need. Les étudiants étaient complètement manqués par le gouvernement libéral, spécifiquement en matière d'aide financière directe. C'était nous, les néo-démocrates, qui ont lutté pour les étudiants et on a livré l'aide directe aux étudiants. C'était nous qui l'avons fait. Et encore, avec un programme de congé de maladie payé. C'est un outil essentiel pour protéger les travailleurs. Un travailleur doit jamais choisir entre aller au travail ou rester chez eux sans avoir de paie. C'était nous qui avons commencé un programme de congé des maladies payées, mais on sait qu'on doit l'améliorer. We fought hard for one of the most important tools in this pandemic, which is paid sick leave. We were the first to bring it forward. We fought to make it happen, but we know it needs to be better. It's still not good enough. We need to make sure that it's not only improved, but we make it permanent. So never again in this country will any worker have to worry about going into work sick or staying at home not knowing if they're going to be able to pay the bills because they have no pay. You know what we've seen in this pandemic is that the Liberals like to take credit, but New Democrats like to get results. We fight to get results. And we need to continue that fight because the situation now is getting very urgent. We know that across this country, the third wave is hitting hard with the variant spreading, people ending up in ICU. And it's not about blame. And we were seeing Justin Trudeau try to blame conservative premiers and conservative premiers try to blame Justin Trudeau. Leadership is not looking for excuses, it's looking for solutions. And what we need right now is a plan with all hands on deck to get every single person in our country vaccinated, particularly essential workers. They need to get vaccinated, and we need a paid sick leave that actually works for everyone now. Lives depend on it. One of the things we noticed throughout this pandemic very clearly is that the Liberals have shown again and again how they're in it for the ultra-rich and they're not in it for you or your family. And I want to give you a couple examples. The Liberals didn't hesitate to forgive billions of dollars of corporate debt. New Democrats believe we need to be forgiving student debt. Liberals profited off the backs of students by charging interest on federal student debt to the tune of billions of dollars. New Democrats believe we need to remove interest entirely and forever, permanently off of student debt. We see again and again when Liberals make decisions, they benefit the ultra-rich, and you end up paying the price. And that is wrong. With pharmacare, the Liberals, they passed a motion recently again in their convention. They've been promising this for 24 years, decades of promises, and they continue to break it. And most recently, we gave them a chance. We put forward a bill to bring in universal pharmacare for all, and they voted against it. The only ones that benefit from the Liberal government voting against pharmacare is Big Pharma. It certainly doesn't help working families. So again, they chose Big Pharma over people. Personne ne doit être forcé de choisir entre payer pour ses médicaments ou son épicerie. Les libéraux ont choisi de protéger les intérêts des grandes compagnies pharmaceutiques au lieu de garder leur promesse d'établir une assurance médicaments universelle et entièrement publique. Nous, les néo-démocrates, nous nous battons pour vous et votre santé. Climate change. The climate crisis is a crisis that has not gone away. We know that it's threatening everything we value. But what's the Liberal track record? What has Justin Trudeau done on climate crisis? He bought a pipeline. He gives millions of dollars away to the oil and gas sectors with fossil fuel subsidies, and he continues to let the biggest polluters off the hook. While conservatives don't believe that the climate crisis is real, the Liberals don't act like it's real. And really, what's the difference? We need immediate action now to actually protect our environment. Les gens au Québec et partout au Canada veulent un gouvernement fédéral qui se bat contre la crise climatique comme s'il veut vraiment gagner la bataille. Les libéraux ont acheté un oléoduc et continuent de subventionner les grandes pétrolières. Ils préfèrent privilégier les intérêts des grandes compagnies polluantes au lieu de s'attaquer à la crise climatique. Les conservateurs, eux, disent qu'il n'y a pas de crise climatique. Nous, les néo-démocrates, travaillons pour une relance juste et durable. Nous luttons contre la crise climatique avec la volonté d'y parvenir. And now, I know it's hard to imagine while we're in the third wave, but we are getting vaccinations, and we know that we will get past this pandemic. And we need to start looking towards a recovery. And in this recovery, a question that keeps on arriving is that who will pay the cost of this pandemic, and who will pay the cost of the recovery? We know people are worried about this question, and I want to answer this clearly. It should not be you or your families, workers, small businesses that had to shut down, workers that lost their jobs. It shouldn't be you that has to pay the cost of this recovery. Who should it be then? We say very clearly, it should be those who profited off the pandemic, the ultra-wealthy, the ultra-rich, large corporations that made record profits, that don't pay taxes in Canada, but make profits off of Canadians. They should be the ones. I've heard it said that in this pandemic, we're all in the same boat. I disagree. We're not actually in the same boat. We're certainly in the same storm. But some of us are in leaky lifeboats, while others are in luxury yachts. In this storm, the Liberals continue to side with those in luxury yachts. La plupart des gens à travers le Canada sont en difficulté, mais les plus riches sont devenus de plus en plus riches. Des grandes entreprises comme Amazon et les géants du web ont fait des profits records à cause de la pandémie. Justin Trudeau a laissé les plus riches éviter de payer leur juste part d'impôts en cachant des milliards de dollars à l'étranger chaque année. Nous, les néo-démocrates, voulons faire payer les plus riches qui ont profité de la pandémie leur juste part pour que nous puissions mieux aider les gens qui en ont vraiment besoin. Mais quand on parle de faire payer les ultra-riches leur juste part, les libéraux et les conservateurs ne veulent rien savoir. And it's not surprising because when we look at the Liberals' approach, they wanted to make it seem like they cared. They wanted to make it look like they were doing something for you and your families. But when it came down to their choices, they didn't choose you or your family. Let's make that really clear. What were their choices? When it came to medication coverage, who did they choose? Was it people? No, they chose Big Pharma. When it came to long-term care and protecting our seniors, who did the Liberals choose? Did they choose protecting our seniors and caring for the most vulnerable? No, they chose to protect the big profits of for-profit long-term care homes. What about climate change? Well, clearly, again and again, instead of choosing to protect our planet, the Liberals chose to protect big polluters. What about one of the most fundamental questions of justice in our country, the fact that Indigenous people still don't have access to clean drinking water? What was the Liberal government's choice when it came to cleaning water for Indigenous people? They chose not to do it. What about making the ultra-rich pay their fair share? The Liberals, again, chose to side with those at the very top, the ultra-wealthy, and didn't pursue making them pay their fair share. But it shouldn't be a surprise. This is who the Liberals really are. Even when New Democrats gave them an opportunity to do the right thing, at every occasion, the Liberals chose to side with the ultra-wealthy. They've made it very clear. They are simply not in it for you. But we are, and we will continue to be. Now, what about the Conservatives? We've heard them say that they are friends to workers. They are the friends of workers. Well, I say very clearly, the Conservatives are no friends to workers when they deny them paid sick leave. They're no friends to workers when they deny pharmacare. They're no friends to workers when they protect profits in long-term care. And they are certainly no friend to workers when they make it harder to join a union. These Conservatives are no different from the previous ones. They believe in cutting the services that people need and making it harder for everyday people. Nous avons vu des gens qui ont de la misère à joindre les deux bouts pendant que les plus riches sont riches. Nous avons vu des petites entreprises qui ferment pendant que les Amazon et les Facebook de ce monde font des profits records. Il faut que ça change. Il faut que ça change maintenant. Mais ce ne sont pas les libéraux de Justin Trudeau qui changeront ça. ni les conservateurs qui n'ont jamais été du bord des travailleurs et travailleuses. Pendant que les libéraux et conservateurs priorisent leurs amis et les plus riches, nous sommes prêts à travailler pour vous. Because we can do better. We've shown what we can accomplish when you elect New Democrats, how we can fight for people and deliver the help that people need, how we can improve the conditions of people. But imagine what we could do if we had more New Democrats elected. Imagine what we could do if we formed a new Democratic government. Imagine all the things that we can do. We can take better care of each other with better health care, including universal pharmacare for all and getting profits out of long-term care. We can uplift young people by tackling student debt. We can have true reconciliation with Indigenous people, starting with making sure that every Indigenous community in this country has clean drinking water as a starting point and building on that. We can have a more equal Canada by tackling hate, racism, and discrimination in all its forms. We can take on the climate crisis by investing in a sustainable recovery that creates good jobs, that helps reduce our emissions. We can do all of this, but only if we have a government with the courage to do it. The courage to stand up to powerful corporations and the ultra-rich, to make them pay their fair share. New Democrats have that courage. We have that courage. Canadians are better off with more New Democrats elected. And I need your help to elect more New Democrats in this election so we can make those changes to lift people up. So I need you to get out and volunteer. I need you to make phone calls, to donate, to help people to vote. Talk to your friends and your family. Let them know all that New Democrats achieved to make people's lives better and how it would help them to have more of us. Mes amis, j'ai besoin de votre aide. Devenez bénévole. Faites des appels. Faites un don. Parlez à vos amis, à votre famille, à vos voisins. Expliquez-leur ce que l'NPD a fait durant cette pandémie et dites-leur qu'on n'a pas fini notre travail. Les gens doivent savoir qu'ils ne peuvent pas compter sur les libéraux pour faire la bonne chose et que c'est seulement avec une équipe forte du NPD qu'ils seront bien servis. Les néo-démocrates se battent pour vous. New Democrats are fighting for you. We've always fought for you, and we always will. Merci. Thank you so much. And friends, now we are going to go to have a quick chat with Laurie Antonin. I'm really excited about this. So come join me over here. We'll have a little chat. Hey, Laurie, can I give you an air elbow there?
Let me just take this mask off.
So how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Good. I just got to connect with so many incredible members of our movement, so it's pretty exciting.
It is really exciting. And you know what? This is, we all know, a different setup, right? I mean, everything's pretty new. I think that we've been doing a pretty good job along the way. But I do want to talk about going virtual and what that means. And Jagmeet, what does it mean to be inclusive when we do this work virtually?
Yeah, no, first off, it's been tough. There's been a lot of folks doing a lot of really hard work, and shout out to all the organizers who are putting their all into this. I really appreciate all of you, and thank you. But I know that we're the only party that truly believes in building an inclusive movement, and that means making sure everyone is involved and everyone is included, and particularly people living with disabilities. And I want to make a commitment to you. We have not been able to achieve what I wanted to see in terms of getting everyone involved and making an inclusive space. So we've got to do a better job. And I commit to you, we will do better. I promise you we will do better in making sure people living with disabilities and all people are included and able to participate fully. And that's something I commit to.
Absolutely, and it's really important. Thank you, Jagmeet. I want to talk about 2020, 2021, we're still in this weird reality, right? What's been keeping you motivated in this time?
I think about all the people that need us. Like I really think about the people that need us and how much we have fought for and helped people out. So that motivates me. I'm worried a lot. And normally when I'm worried, I want to just do something about it. But I felt that frustration and of like, how can we get more help to people? But on a personal note, I've been trying to stay healthy and, cook at home and work out. I've been worried a lot about my parents.
Yeah.
I'm really tight with them. I'm kind of like their personal coach. I put them through workouts whenever I can, and I try to take care of them. And it's been tough because of lockdowns and stay-at-home orders, not being able to see them. But when they got the vaccine, I got to say, I literally breathed in a sigh of relief, knowing that they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are feeling the same way. That's why the vaccination is so important. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And like you, like me, like Jagmeet, we have family members that we haven't seen in a really long time. We have our elderly relatives that we're incredibly worried about. And something about the pandemic that we have really learned is the fact that the healthcare system is unbelievably fragile. So the for-profit long-term care homes, we've seen devastating things there. Jagmeet, what do we need to do to protect our seniors?
This is the biggest shame, the national shame that I talked about, the fact that are the most vulnerable seniors, not just seniors, but often the most vulnerable, those that are in long-term care because they have extra needs, were the ones that bore the brunt of this. And one of the clear things that we've learned is that for-profit long-term care homes have no place in our healthcare. I mean, it's probably not a surprise for New Democrats that I believe that any private care has no place in our healthcare, but certainly when it comes to our seniors and vulnerable seniors in long-term care, their lives should never be less important than profits. And that's what we saw. And so getting profit out of long-term care, making sure we've got national standards, and connecting the conditions of work directly to the conditions of care.
Absolutely.
That when our workers are protected and supported and respected, they're better off.
Il y a quelque chose qui s'est passé pendant la pandémie, ça n'a pas affecté tout le monde de la même façon.
C'est vrai.
On s'entend que il y a une disparité grandissante à cause de ce qui se passe en ce moment. Alors moi, j'aimerais savoir qu'est-ce qu'on va faire pour protéger ces gens-là.
Oui, il faut reconnaître, c'est clair qu'il y avait une grande différence de l'impact de la COVID-19 sur les femmes.
Oui.
Et on a vu l'augmentation de la violence domicile et spécifiquement la violence perpétuée contre les femmes. Ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on a vu. On a aussi vu l'impact sur la communauté autochtone, sur nos aînés. Donc, il faut reconnaître qu'il y avait un impact spécifique, en particulier sur les communautés racisées, et l'importance de reconnaître l'impact et puis comment on peut agir pour régler cet impact disproportionné sur quelques-uns.
Oh, absolument. One of the things, and just looking at 2020 and even coming into 2021, we are seeing some marginalized groups being attacked. We are seeing hate come about in ways that hurts me every day, and I'm sure it hurts you as well, and I just want to know, when we think about the groups that are fighting for their lives, and you talked about in your speech about, violence with the police, mental health affecting racialized communities, let's talk about what will you do to ensure that we really address systemic racism?
Yeah, it's something I'm really sad about when I think about it, right? I think about how sad that is, that we love the fact that Canada has welcomed people from around the world, but the reality is people from around the world don't feel welcome. And we're seeing a rise in hate, a really troubling rise in hate, targeting racialized people, Black people specifically, Indigenous people. We're seeing a rise in anti-Semitism. And the thing about hate that I want to really highlight is hate is like a fire. Once it's allowed to take hold, it doesn't just target one group, it starts to spread. So we all have a collective responsibility to fight hate wherever it is. We've also seen misogyny rear its head. So it's important for us to acknowledge that there is a rise in hate.
Yeah.
And some of the things we can do, we know that a lot of hate is spread through misinformation online. So better rules around stopping the spread of that misinformation. We know that led to some of the anti-Asian hate that has been perpetrated and really horrible violence. So we need to tackle online hate. We need to get at the hate groups. And we did a really big effort as a team to fight to ban the Proud Boys and to target white supremacist groups like that are promoting that message of hate and division. So there's a lot that we can do. Yeah. We need to have better data around the health outcomes, educational outcomes, justice system outcomes. With better data, we can make better policies that help us get at the systemic racism. And it's really important, it's systemic. The problems are systemic, which mean we have to find solutions that are going to get at the system. It's not about one or two individuals, it's about a system. And together, if we have the right tools, we can fix this.
You know what, I want to take a moment and ask you this question. On behalf of all the activists that are out there doing this work, give them a word of wisdom or encouragement. What would that be?
It's tough work. I just feel for you. I know how draining it can be. I think this applies for all activists, right? When we're fighting against injustice, unfairness, it takes a lot out of us. So I always remember the words of my mom. She taught me this phrase, and it's been with me my whole life. It's something that I really tap into. It's Jardi Kala. It's 2 words, and it means Jardi is rising and Kala means spirits. So it's rising spirits. And we have to tap into rising spirits in the face of hopeless odds. So I'd ask people to really dig deep and find that courageous optimism, the connection that we all share. I draw a lot of strength from the fact that we're all connected. And that when we care for the people around us, we're caring for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And we're building a better future. So these are some of the things that I tap into. But keep on fighting the good fight. It's worth it. We need you. And I'm right here with you.
I'm going to take that with me as well.
For sure.
Because we do this work every day.
Oh, you do, Laurie. Thank you for the work you
stop.
do. Thank you for everything you do, actually.
Right?
Shout out to Laurie.
Oh, man. Yay. I want to take a moment to talk about something that, oh my gosh, climate action.
Yeah.
And I'm going to switch to French.
Sure.
So, durant la pandémie, on a vu beaucoup de crises. Et puis la crise climatique en est une qui... C'est comme si les gens ne savent pas vraiment comprendre comment dealer avec, vraiment. Mais j'aimerais savoir de toi, comment est-ce qu'on continue la lutte vers la crise climatique et comment est-ce qu'on peut créer de nouveaux emplois pendant la relance?
OK, je pense que c'était une tellement importante question. 2 choses, je peux dire ce qu'on doit faire, mais aussi je peux présenter ce qu'on ne doit pas faire. Et c'est ce que les libéraux et les conservateurs ont donné comme exemple. Les conservateurs, comme j'ai dit dans mon discours, ils n'acceptent pas qu'il y a une crise.
Ouais.
C'est inacceptable, ça. Et deuxièmement, mais on est les libéraux, je pense quelque chose qui est un peu plus dangereux, c'est le fait qu'ils dit une chose, mais fait l'autre. Donc, ils donnent des belles paroles en reconnaissant que oui, il y a une crise climatique, mais leurs actions sont complètement différentes.
Absolument.
Ils ont, à chaque reprise, montré comment ils ont exempté les grands pollueurs, ils ont acheté un pipeline et continuent de subventionner les secteurs pétroliers. Donc, ça, c'est aussi pas la bonne chose à faire. Donc, ce que je pose comme une solution, c'est vraiment de trouver dans cet temps difficile une occasion, une opportunité. Dans la relance, on doit faire une relance, on doit relancer notre économie. Et en faisant ça, on peut cibler l'occasion de créer des bons emplois qui réduisent les émissions. On sait que c'est la chose morale, on doit le faire, mais aussi c'est la bonne chose à faire parce que les marchés globaux aussi montrent comment ils allaient vers un avenir plus renouvelable, une économie durable. Donc, c'est aussi la morale chose à faire, c'est la bonne chose à faire et c'est une occasion de créer des emplois.
Oh, je suis d'accord avec toi à 100%. C'est super important, puis je veux pas terminer notre conversation parce que je trouve que ça va super bien.
Oui, on a une connexion, oui, il y a quelque chose ici. Peut-être qu'on doit continuer comme un talk show comme ça.
OK, on continue, on vous ignore, excusez, là, on va continuer à se parler. Mais tu sais ce que je vais faire, en fait? Je vais faire ce que j'appelle un petit rapid fire.
OK, je suis prêt.
OK. Est-ce que vous faites 1,
oui.
2, 3. Quel est le dernier beau livre que tu as lu?
Dernier beau livre. J'ai lu quelques-uns. Culture Code, c'était un bon livre que j'ai lu. J'ai lu aussi plusieurs Breath. Je suis en train de lire Breath, qui parle de comment on doit sentir.
Excellent.
Plusieurs. J'ai aussi une petite chose que je pense que les gens vont me juger, mais j'ai en train de finir Attack on Titan, qui est un manga. C'est une sorte de livre japonais.
OK.
Donc, je l'aime beaucoup aussi.
Ne le jugez pas, les gens. Je voulais aussi juste vraiment vite, il faut qu'on parle de pharmacare.
OK, oui.
Vite, vite, parce que c'est très important.
Oui.
So now you talked about promises. The Liberals, they just fall. They do not keep any of their promises. What will you do to implement a pharmacare plan?
I get a little bit frustrated when I think about this
Yeah.
because the Liberals have been saying they're going to do this for literally decades. And again, I think in their convention, they passed another resolution. And what to me is so frustrating is that people are fed up with these phony
Absolutely.
promises,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They're just fed up. And when we gave the Liberal government, we gave Justin Trudeau an opportunity, a clear chance to vote on a bill to bring in universal pharmacare, he voted against it. His whole party voted against it. And so what I want to say really clearly is this is something vital. We need to make this happen. In this pandemic, it's only shown how much more important it is. People lost their jobs, people lost income, and they're already struggling to buy their medication.
Absolutely.
It's made it even worse. So our commitment is universal, publicly funded, medication coverage for all. You should use your health card, not your credit card, to get the medication you need. It only makes sense, and we're committed to it.
This is great, and I love hearing that from you, Jagmeet, because I'm an advocate for pharmacare. So let's get it. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Okay, to wrap this up, I have another question for you.
Yes.
Okay, takeout or will you cook at home?
Ooh, I cook at home.
Amazing.
I've shared lots of videos and like little snapshots on Instagram and social media. I love cooking, but I mean, I believe in supporting our local businesses as well.
Absolutely.
But I really enjoy cooking.
What is your wife's favorite meal?
Did I cook for her?
Oh, that was...
I was gonna say I cook a bunch of things that she likes. I think she randomly, and she'll like, this is gonna be funny for her, but she likes baked beans a lot. So I make like homemade baked beans.
Oh, delicious.
I make a good pad thai using coconut cabbage or using cabbage as the noodles with a little bit of coconut sauce and some soy sauce and spices. So yeah, like a pad thai with cabbage.
I'm coming over next time.
Come on over. Once we get past this.
I gotta ask this question, okay?
Yes.
For those out there.
Yeah.
When Rihanna followed you on Instagram, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
Oh my goodness. I was like, this is pretty awesome. This is pretty cool. Could we become friends? I was thinking, well, we'll see.
That's amazing. What's your favorite Rihanna song?
Oh my goodness. You know what? I liked the last album that she put out.
It's so good.
Every single song is literally one of my no-skip albums. I put it on, press play, and don't skip it.
Oh my gosh, what a dream in these
every
times.
single song, yeah. And it's made all sorts of records. She keeps on breaking records with that album.
She keeps coming out.
Yeah.
I do Riri makeup, so, you know. Anyway, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Jagmeet, for the rapid fire, even if there's no fire, but we're still living it up. And so with that, thanks for chatting with us today. I will now pass it back to our balloting chair, Emily Watkins, to go through the process for the leadership review vote. We will take a bit longer break this time and return to debate resolutions in Section 5, Governing an Inclusive and Fair Canada. Thanks, Jagmeet.
Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.
This is fun.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.